So we're going to continue on, and
not.
I know Penny's been having technical issues, so I'm filling in. So the purpose of the rest of this meeting is to allow the proponent of a resolution to educate the members and delegates on their resolution. So it also gives an opportunity for members to ask questions about the resolutions. We started this a few years ago to start earlier with discussion. So we'll discuss resolutions here, then it goes to the committees for their discussion, and then it goes to the floor. This guides the executive committee and board. The purpose of the bylaws, purpose of bylaws is guides the executive committee and board of directors governance of the organizations. Bylaws are the most important legal document of any organization, whether it is a corporation, association, or a partnership. Bylaws outline the day-to-day rules for our organization and provide comprehensive guidelines to keep things running smoothly. Yeah, and then we did the plenary purpose and we voted. I think we're going backwards. There we go. Okay, AHA's organizational house is its bylaws, and the bylaws provide a solid structure for our existing complete with foundation, windows, doors for exits. Amended at the convention by a vote of delegates. It can be amended at the convention by a vote of the delegates. It can be proposed by a member, organization, or standing ad hoc committees, boards of delegates, boards of directors, and of the AHA or the AHA president. It's a bylaw. A resolution is evaluated by a bylaw is evaluated by the bylaws committee and the agendas and resolutions committee. Resolutions will have an effective date on each resolution. This is exceptionally important this year. And you will see that with resolution number 1. Extraordinary resolutions are effective 12/31 of the current year. Upon adoption of an extraordinary resolution, the executive committee and the board of directors may, and I am blocked out here, may alter the effective date. Sorry. I have too many windows open on a really small screen. Next page. The consent, okay, this is new to us, and it's not new to other organizations, but it is new to us. A consent agenda allows a vote, one vote, on all items in that consent agenda. We also allow something that is on the consent agenda. In our case, it would be a resolution to be removed from the consent agenda. So in the past, those that have been going to convention for many, 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 many years, you hear things like, this is housekeeping. The consent agenda is somewhat used for that function. If we believe that there are resolutions that are all going to get passed, they can be passed through a consent agenda. But a resolution can be removed from the consent agenda if it is the belief by basically anyone that separate discussion needs to be held on that resolution. Resolutions must be removed prior to the vote to approve the consent agenda. So obviously you can't approve the consent agenda with a resolution in it and then take the resolution off the consent agenda. So it must be done prior. Once the consent agenda is adopted, those resolutions will not be read or discussed as they are adopted by the convention. Bylaws resolutions will not be part of the consent agenda. And this is because the bylaws have to pass with a 2/3 vote, and the consent agenda, in theory, could pass with a 51% vote. And if I'm saying anything wrong, somebody slap me. But I'd prefer you didn't. So your responsibilities as delegates are to read and review the resolutions, identify resolutions you believe that need to be removed from the consent agenda vote, and we will remove them and they will be read, discussed, and voted on separately. Amendments must be submitted to Leslie Lockard at leslielockhart@arabianhorses.org. Prior to convention, all amendments are posted on the AHA website where they can be accessed and will show up as Amendment 1 and Amendment 2, etc. Waiving of the reading of resolutions. I know you guys love that part, but we're waiving the reading of all the resolutions. That is now added to the standing rules of convention. If anyone wants a resolution to be taken off of the consent agenda or never put on the consent agenda, you just need to email Leslie to say, this is, I want to have discussion. So the first resolution that we're going to talk about will be, the proponent is on, I believe, is Cynthia.
Everybody, on resolution number 1, this is pretty self-explanatory. In order for us to be able to have our elections, we have to be able to do it electronically this year. So the best way that the bylaws committee came up with this is to have all elections will be conducted by a written or electronic ballot. So we just need you to pass this so we can use the V-voter to have our elections this year. And it will be effective immediately.
The EC has the ability, and or the board of directors has the ability to make an effective date earlier than December 31st. But the problem we have with this year is that we have an election that's going to occur at the second session of the convention. So convention's all one day, so nominations are going to be made at the first session, and then speeches and stuff, I believe, are the second session. And then the elections are going to occur at the end of the second session. All of this is in one day. So to be able to accomplish the electronic voting, we have to get this passed at the first session. And then the EC is going to have to technically have a meeting and vote to make the effective date immediate. And then there's another process. I believe it has to be posted on the association's website. That way we'll be in compliance with our Rule 101.3A paragraph 4, I believe. So that's kind of the background, that it's imperative that we get this passed at the first session. All of the other resolutions, the other 2 bylaw amendments and the rest of the resolutions will be handled, I believe, at the second session. So I want everybody to understand how this process, because of the way our rules are written with standard resolution, extraordinary resolution, and these effective dates, that this is an unusual resolution in the fact that we've got to make it immediate upon a vote of the EC.
So this second resolution sort of goes hand in glove with what we've been discussing. Can you hear me? All right. You can? Okay. So as we go through the second resolution, I'm still playing catch up again. I apologize. The proponent on this is Charles Bass, and we're lucky enough to have Charles Bass here. Charles is chairman, besides being on agenda and resolutions, Charles is chair of our bylaws committee. So Charles, would you take it from here, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This resolution come up early in the year with some conversations that I had with the Vice President on options on what we could do this year in holding a convention, either virtual and there was discussions whether or not the convention could be canceled. Our bylaws, as they're structured now, specifically say we shall have a convention, and the time and place would be set by a prior convention. So this resolution was put forward to the bylaws committee. I more or less wrote it, and it was sent off to the Bylaws Committee. And then my distinguished colleague on the Bylaws Committee, Joe Hull, rewrote it and got it in a little better form. And we had quite a few discussions within the Bylaws Committee on the structure of this resolution. The first resolve, if you look at line 75, is the important part of the resolution. That article within the bylaws is kind of, it kind of runs together. So what we did is we split those items up and kind of gave them headings. That's why those are in italic bold. So we denoted what the powers of the executive committee, what the limitations are, but then we added the key component of this resolution is at line 75, where we now are proposing an emergency provision, which would basically state that if for some reason a national emergency or any one of a number of things, that the executive committee is authorized to postpone or cancel the annual convention. Now, that being said, there's another component that we have particular things that have to be accomplished at each convention, namely nominations and elections to the nominating committee, which are included in the bylaws. We also have our elections of the EPRB, the Commissioners Review Panel, I believe the judges selection, and also election of a member to the probable cause panel. So those things need to be fulfilled each year as people are up for going off the panels, the commissions, the different things, and that could be up for re-election or new people being nominated and being elected to these positions. So how do you accomplish that? The Bylaws Committee felt like that if for some reason a national emergency, as we were under this year with Reno being shut down, and we're having to go to a virtual convention, if we canceled the convention, how could we handle these things that need to be done, such as elections? So what we looked at was the executive committee could make a decision to postpone or cancel a convention. If they cancel the convention, those things that have to be done each year is basically contained that starting at line 84, or actually 86, is the new provision that moves all of the voting and everything to the board of directors and gives them the authority to elect the positions. And I think it's also included in starting at line 98, where it spells out the specifics on giving that authority to the board of directors, rather than just a 9-member EC electing people. We felt it was better to have a board of directors of 29 making those important decisions on who the officers may be if it's an election, an officer election year, but also those other things. Nominating committee members need to be elected. EPRB members need to be elected. Those are all important things that need to be done that now are handled by the convention. But if we cancel the convention, we need a mechanism to be able to fulfill those other parts within our handbook, and also the nominating committee, which is included in the bylaws, how that procedure is handled. So if you'll move up a little bit, Leslie, and we made this an extraordinary resolution, but it's not as time sensitive as resolution 1, in the fact that it could take effect, as long as it takes effect by December 31st of 2020, then we're covered for the 2021 year, which we don't know how much more lockdown we're going to be. We're scheduled to go to Niagara Falls in Canada in 2021 for our convention. So there's a lot of uncertainty still out there on what we're going to be able to do next year. So that's why the Bylaws Committee is proposing this as an option. It's strictly an option that, and it has to be national emergencies. You just can't do it without it being a declared national, state, or local emergency that could affect a convention. So we urge the delegates to take a look at this. It just gives another option.
Article 6, Section 1 in our handbook states that the annual convention of the Arabian Horse Association shall be held annually at such time and place as shall be determined by previous conventions. And that very clearly delineates the fact that this year we are supposed to be in Reno having a face-to-face. We have nothing that buffers that in our bylaws. We have nothing that allows us to do anything differently than that. So what this resolution does is it slides in there and says, if for some reason we cannot fulfill Article 6, Section 1, and it's page 7 in the 2020 handbook. If you look at that and realize that we have, for a number of years going forward, all agreed at convention as voted upon what our next convention shall be. When it hits the fan and we can't do that, we need to have a resolution in place that gives us the provisions of how we will determine how we behave and how this convention will go forward, because there are actions in this convention that, as it stands now, and we're going through this is all just, you know, learning on the job kind of thing. But when we try and fulfill all these little rules that come through, we trip over those kind of things. And this is to buffer the fall that when we cannot fulfill the article and the section, this gives us an allowance to still have an annual meeting and still do what we need to do. Down the road, we can correct that. We now know that this will happen, but I believe this resolution basically sort of slides in there and allows us to go forward with our business. Moving on rapidly to resolution 3, Executive Vice President to Executive Director. This is a bylaws change. It has most to do with this title and a few things like that. The proponent on this is Cynthia Richardson, and I will turn the floor over to Cynthia.
Good evening again, everybody. This actually is really important to us because many of us for the last couple of years, when we knew that Glenn was going to be leaving, have looked and actually done some searches and did some postings for EVPs. And then we got, you know, through the process, and we got a lot of resolutions, a lot of resumes, but really looking at the difference of what AHA was 10, 20 years ago and what it is right now. Think about the size of our organization and the number of horses that were being bred and the amount of business, the amount of money we were doing. We were able at one time to pay an EVP a pretty decent salary. And, you know, I'll be honest, the EVPs talk to each other a lot, and they meet at the American Horse Council, and they meet at USEF, and they meet various places around, and they're all friends, and they talk about various things. And so when we sent out a request for people to send in their resumes, the salary expectation of having an EVP position is quite high. And we really don't need that kind of person. We have incredible directors that serve at AHA, and have a number of them have been there a number of years, and we have a really good staff, and we don't need somebody that's used to running a, you know, $5 billion corporation to come and work for AHA. We need somebody who relates well and can organize and go forward. And so by changing this, when we do, Stan, bless his heart, he's wearing two hats, and he can't continue to do that. And we need to make it so that we can actually put together a job description for an executive director and make that change and let Stan have a life again, to be quite honest, and get the kind of people to respond to our requests for resumes to be the right type of person. So that's why this is necessary. And, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it is a big deal if you're having to try to fill that position and make it the right person. So I hope you'll support this. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I don't see any hands. So we could move on to number 4, which is going to be Carol Spangler. And I'm looking. Yeah, Carol, can you raise your hand? I think you're under Carol, but yep, she raised her hand.
Oh, good. Okay. Okay, so we are going to resolution 4, which is the responsibility of a regular and local competition offering dressage. This is the resolution that was brought to you by Carol Spangler through the dressage group. And Carol, could you explain what needs to happen here, please?
Yep. Yeah, so this resolution has come about because we found kind of a loophole. So currently, C2 stewards can officiate a breed show that offers dressage up through 4th level. If you go above 4th level, then you need to have a technical delegate there. There are about 11, 12 folks in the United States that have both licenses. So if you hire a horse show hires one of those folks, then they don't have to have 2 different people, which saves them money. But some of our shows that are breed shows like to offer open dressage classes at the show where then any breed can show in those classes. And it's a way of bringing in more exhibitors and more income for the horse show. The loophole comes in the way the rule is written right now. If you have a C2 TD dual licensed official, they are requiring, based on USEF's interpretation of the rule, you hire another second TD if you have open dressage classes. So this is something that's kind of been discovered this past year and been brought to light. And so what this rule will do is amend that so that, if you hire that C2 steward TD, they can officiate any dressage classes at that breed show. I do want to bring up that because this is a GR rule change, it will go, even if it's approved at our convention, it will have to go to USEF DF Dressage Committee, and because it's going to affect all breed shows. So they'll have input from their side as well.
Are there any questions to Carol about this resolution? Really, there's no questions on this resolution? Okay, good.
Wow.
I'm going to assume that the dressage people that have gone through this all agree, and the rest of us just trust the dressage people on this. Our next resolution is resolution 5. It pertains to the regulation of judging conflicts when you have a judge at a show. This is Mary Jane Brown's. MJ, are you out there?
This is coming from the EEC, and when USEF changed some of General Rule 1304.2 and 1304.3, the Arab exception was in it, but it was not included in 1304.4. I hate this phrase, but in theory, this is housekeeping to keep the Arab division the way we are living under it right now.
All of the people that have an interest, a vested interest in any of these, you can usually, there's an email address for the proponents. And if we're done here and you have a question that comes up, please email your proponents. They wrote this because they felt a need and they want you to vote in a positive manner. They want you to vote for their resolution. So if you have a question, don't hesitate to email the proper people. In this case, it would be the proponent, and ask your question directly to them. I know most of the proponents and they will all respond. So if for any reason you have a question that you want to just directly ask Mary Jane or Carol or whomever, please feel free to send your emails to them, she says, knowing I'm not going to get any. Okay, so now we're going to go to 620. 620 is about junior exhibitor age in Western dressage. The proponent again is Carol. Carol, could you speak to this, please?
Sure. So this is Western dressage at Arabian shows. So the majority of our rules for Western dressage come from the WD chapter in the rule book. And the junior exhibitor definition for Western dressage up until like a month ago was up to the age of 22. They recently just put in a change themselves to amend that. So now it stands as of, I think, December. It will be, junior exhibitor will be up to their 18th birthday as of December 1st. So it still doesn't match what we typically have at our junior exhibitor, which is up to their 19th birthday, December 1st. So this resolution is just to align so that all junior exhibitors within the Arabian division would be defined the same.
We're going to move on to numbers. Go ahead, Penny, sorry.
Oh, please don't apologize to me. I'm still learning. This is OJT on my end. Resolution 7 is the youth national exception to the breeding in hand order of go. And the proponent on this is Cynthia. And I know you're out there. Would you like to take this forward, please?
Sure,
Cynthia,
I'd be happy to. As you know, our youth are incredibly talented and therefore they can do many, many things. And we have found that the restriction of having to have the halter classes enter by age becomes very difficult for us because a child may need to be over in the specialty ring and the halter is being held in the working Western ring as it was this year, part of it, and then part of it was in main ring. And so what happens is that the scheduling, Sharon does an incredible job, and we can pretty much know that, you know, at 2:20, this ring should be finished, and at 2:25, that one should start. And so if we were able to then move a youth up or down or someplace else and use the out of the ring procedure, which we do almost all of the time there because of these conflicts, it's really hard to get a whole class in at that one time. So we use the out of the ring process. So this would allow us just to be able to fix some of these scheduling issues. So for instance, if you're riding over in a hunt seat class and then you need to show your gelding up in the main ring, we could put you to the bottom of the class, regardless of how old the horse is, and let them go. So that's what this is all about. And we really would appreciate your support.
our next resolution is resolution number 8. I see Cricket is there. Cricket Gates is our proponent on this, and it pertains to permanent changes to the hunter jog rules. And I will turn this over to Cricket, who will explain why this was written and why it should pass.
This started as a USCF Pres mod for the jog rules for the year. Traditionally, or as is, the horses after they compete are stripped of their saddles. They're run in the order in which the judge is judging them in their order of preference. They're judged sound, and then they exit the ring to get tacked back up and then compete in the flat portion of the division. So USCF said, because of this COVID stuff, we're not going to do this. The horses now, after they jump their course, they trot a circle on a loose rein at the end of their jumping performance. The judge makes a decision whether the horse is sound or not. End of story, done, out of the ring, next horse. This has proved to be a huge time saver. So you're not having the time to tack and retack horses up and down. The exhibitors like it, show management likes it, and the judges that I've spoke to have liked it. So this was to keep the Pres Mod in place. That's why it's checked as extraordinary, but since USEF has already said any Pres Mods that were enacted for 2020 will stay in place for 2021. So this can be a standard resolution now, but this just keeps the Pres Mod permanent, or makes the Pres Mod permanent.
Cricket, would you explain Pres Mod to those people that don't do this a lot, please?
Oh, so USCF has the ability to issue a presidential modification, which is a change or clarification to an existing rule until an actual rule change can be made. Because of COVID, they have pages of presidential modifications that were issued this year. So when this one came out for the hunters, that's what this one was for. That's what a presidential modification is.
10:20? Are we ready to go for that? Oh, I'm sorry, 9:20. Sorry, Carol.
You're going
I'm
to skip
sorry,
me?
I'm sorry. So we're looking at resolution 920. And it's modification of an Arabian rule pertaining to open dressage statements for regular and local competitions. And I will turn the floor over to Carol Spangler, who is the proponent on the resolution.
So this came about because we were notified by USEF through Kathy Callahan's group that the DR section 120 and 121 are actually going to be reorganized and renumbered. So the original question was, what do you want to do with our reference to DR 121.8? So we looked at that to see, what all was in the 120 and 121 section. And, this statement is in regards to the open dressage classes at an Arabian show. And we felt that everything really should apply because they are open dressage classes. The additional part of that sentence that we added was because of a USEF statement that came out a couple years ago now that never really made it into a rule book that says that you need to, if you're going to have dressage, breed restricted dressage, open dressage classes, you need to do the open dressage classes first and have them completed before you start your breed restricted dressage classes. So this is just clarifying when would that rule be in effect from the time that the horses are admitted to the grounds until the conclusion of their participation in the open dressage classes. So if you look above that for the Arabian classes, the rules 120 and 121 apply when you're in the designated warm-up arena, because we know we have a lot of cross entries into the main ring and other arenas. So that's why we wanted to clarify the additional clarification on the open dressage classes.
Back to
We
you.
go forward to resolution number 10, which is breaking ties and working Western. Our proponent on that is Jim Hitt. Jim, are you here?
I am. Can you hear me?
There you are. I'm going to turn this over to you to talk to us about your resolution.
So this has kind of been kicked around the Working Western group for a couple years. It started more with ties happening in trail and even like at just Scottsdale. And then it kind of boomed into where we had a number of runoffs happening like at nationals and youth and stuff, and just places where horses go way too many times to have another run really be merited for them if we can help it. And so it's just a way of breaking ties that should help expedite shows and reduce the number of goes for horses. And it utilizes the number of penalties first, and then the second tiebreaker becomes a predetermined maneuver or obstacle that the judge does prior to starting the class and stuff. So just pretty simple that way.
Okay, I show Carol highlighted. Carol, did you wish to speak to this? No. Okay, we're going to jump on into resolution 11. And these are sort of the beginning of several pertaining to the addition of some of our ranch horse classes. And so I'm assuming you guys have all read these before you jumped in. Sandra, are you out there? Can you speak to this?
So 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 are all connected. These resolutions complete the full contingency of classes within the Ranch Horse Division. I don't know what more to say. Ranch Horse as a division is very popular now. We would like to offer the full complement of classes so that shows are able to hold these ranch horse classes. We already have ranch riding. And as you know, ranch rail pleasure, ranch trail, and ranch cow work were passed last year and will come into our rule book. And so these last set of classes will bring the full enchilada, so to speak.
Okay,
We ready to move on?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm looking.
Cynthia,
making-
are you still out there? Cynthia Richardson?
There.
Okay, good. 1620, resolution 1620 is allowing national classes a change of venue. And this came into play huge this year. Cynthia, would you like to speak to your resolution, please?
Yes, please. COVID unfortunately taught us many lessons. And as you all are well aware, Nancy put together an emergency team to address what was happening to our industry and what we should do with our regional shows and what we should do with our national shows. And you know, we really sort of held our breath and were able to put on the youth/midsummer show. And Canada, because the borders were closed and all of that, had to be canceled for this year. So we need to be able to do this in an orderly fashion. And both the Sport Horse Nationals and the Youth Nationals were put in by resolution. The Canadian Nationals was put in by a board motion. So that's why Canada is not mentioned in here. So the resolves takes out the word separate. So a youth national show, obviously this year we had it with Midsummer. So that makes that actually legal. And then when the Sport Horse was put in, there was concern that if the Sport Horse Nationals didn't go, that they would lose their position at US Nationals and would want to come back. Well, the reality is the Sport Horse Nationals has done very well and continues to do very well. And they're, you know, really logistically, there isn't a place to put them back in US Nationals if that was an option. So what we're trying to do is clean this up so that the board then can make the decision along with the national commissions as to where to put classes if a show is canceled. And, you know, this really came, the classes, it's sort of like things that have to be done, but we have our futurity classes that you pay money, obviously, all along because you've nominated. And, you know, the real question then became, should those just be canceled? Should they be postponed until the next year? How should that be handled? Well, this would allow all of that to take care and be done in a orderly fashion. So please, again, to make AHA nimble, pass this resolution. Happy to answer any questions.
Are we ready to move on to resolution 1720? That is exempting Western horsemanship from MOS at regional shows with 250 horses or less. And Cricket, are you still out there?
I am.
All right, it's yours, girl.
So I have to look at this title again, because I don't think the intent is to only exempt it from shows, regional shows with 250 horses or less, but it's to exempt it from MOS, period. Or the ability to.
I think she's oh, my friend is madly getting her handbook.
That's why I have up to. That's what kind of, you know, when I saw that 250 or less, because the intent is to be able to allow horsemanship to be held in a specialty ring, you know, to allow show management the flexibility to, you know, move it to whatever ring is most appropriate and suitable for management and their exhibitors.
Right. She's reading fast, quickly.
Yeah.
Madam President,
Yes, sir. Oh,
Charles Bass. I believe at line 31, it says an original show that had less than 250 horses is already in the rule. Look at line 31, and I think that's where we got the title.
Yeah, okay, yeah, because the intent was just not to limit it, but it is, for those specialty things and for regional shows less than 250, but that's not the whole intent of it.
But are you not adding, oh, what are we doing? We're inserting Western.
wait. I have the answer.
Okay,
I have
Press-
the answer. And the answer is and. So if you
Yeah.
read line 31 in the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth word in is an and. So
Right.
it is exception to all those different divisions cannot use MOS. Oh, scroll down. And regional shows that are less than 250 horses. So it's not less than, it's all these working hunter hack can use, are exempt from MOS and regional shows that have less than 250 horses.
So I think the title's misleading.
I think the exempting Western MOS.
I think it needs to get rid of the 250 horses or less.
Yes, I see what you're saying, because
Yeah.
where I'm seeing that subject is in the resolution log, and all it says is exempting Western horsemanship from MOS at regional shows.
So it's the,
The
let me,
title should remove, it should be exempting Western horsemanship from MOS at regional shows.
Period. Yeah.
period. Charles, if I may ask you very quickly, are we agenda and resolutions, Nancy, Leslie, everybody? Can we change the subject title of this, drop with 250 horses or less, without that being an amendment? Can we just do that without it being a formalized amendment? It's simply a subject, it's a title, and I do believe that it came through agenda and resolutions with some help from staff. If the proponent doesn't care, Charles and Nancy and Leslie, can we just change that to have a MOS at regional shows and strike through the 250 horses or less? Or
As-
do we have to formalize that as an amendment?
Well, I think
As-
you have to
as a practical matter, Penny, all we're voting on actually is the resolve.
Yeah, that's what I
So
thought.
anything above the resolve, we really don't vote. What goes in the book is the
Right.
resolve. So I don't have a problem with removing it. I think as agenda and resolutions, we looked at where it was, and because I remember having the conversation
Right,
about what the title was.
right.
So I think Nancy is correct in that it says and. So, but here again, we're not voting on the title. We're voting on the Western, Western horsemanship going into that rule.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, this may be a question for Carol, but I think it's misleading if you don't change the title.
I agree.
I do too.
So we can get with, Carol's nodding her head.
Okay.
Okay, good. All right.
Okay, Penny, it's back to you. You get to talk. I'm going.
I don't have that much left to say, ladies and gentlemen. We've gone through all the resolutions. I would open it up to just general questions. I think that's a little dangerous. Does anyone have any questions on the 17 resolutions that we have reviewed at this point that did not get answered, or they have any further questions on? All right. To all of you that have joined us, thank you very much this evening. It's important that you're here. Those of you that are voting delegates or voting alternates, and those of you that have been kind enough to come to find out what's going on and what we're looking at for the future of the organization, take what you have heard this evening, go back to your fellow members, go back to your clubs. I think most of us have a club meeting, hopefully. If not, you will have caucus. Tell them what you've heard, open discussion on this, encourage discussion, encourage questions, going back to the proponents on these. We have committee meetings scheduled throughout the upcoming week or so. If you have questions or if you have a specific position on these, attend those meetings. Even if you just want more information, a lot of these, if you look at the top, you'll see the committees that were assigned to discuss these in committee. Attend those committee meetings and hear what they have to say and voice your opinion. If you have a comment regarding a resolution, be ready to speak on the virtual floor. Have your questions succinctly asked. You've seen tonight that there's some lag time and it's a little bit confusing. So make sure that you are ready to speak, that you have your questions written. Make sure that you have either a link to the resolutions. I would strongly suggest that you print them out. If you're going to have to change screens or go back and forth, you're going to sincerely wish you had them there to look at and go forward with that. If for some reason you can't print them, make notes. Things will start happening, and trying to go from resolutions back to this sheet to back to this screen will be disconcerting for yourself and you will lose your place. So please make sure you have those. The committee schedule is up. It's in front of you right now. You can also link on the website and I'm sure on the app. So make sure you go through, try to get to the board meeting and see how that works. That's very important for all of you. So go to those committee meetings and find out what those committees have to say about those resolutions. Make sure that you go back and talk to your committees and to your members, and most importantly, to your fellow regional members. So you are all sort of have a better position on all of these. Make sure you are ready to link up. You saw tonight, everything went just swimmingly on our run through the other day, and I couldn't get on early tonight. So thank you, Leslie and Nancy, for stepping in. So make sure you're ready to do that. We're going to have enough sort of step ups as it is anyway. If you have any questions about any of this, please feel free to send an email to leslie.lockhart@arabianhorses.org. Leslie will either answer you directly or will forward that to the person that can best answer those questions. And I think that you will have an email with a link to the committee meetings and dates and time. So try and get there. This is an important convention on a lot of different levels. And so if you know people that aren't there, get them to sign up. That's all I have to say. Back to you, Nancy.
So I'm going to close this out with a couple of things. One is on your screen right now is what the grit page will look like when we go live on Saturday. So it says the event hasn't started yet. Well, because it hasn't, it will start Saturday morning, but you will receive a link to log in, and this is what you will see once you log in. The live area is in the middle, and then you can scroll down to see the schedule for the actual convention when we talk about introductions, when we do credentials reports, standing rules, all of that. The second session, the third session. As of right now, we're still updating all of this information, so I'm not going to debate if it's right or not right now, because this isn't live. I just wanted you to see how cool this is. It also has a list of speakers. We only have 2 speakers up so far. We are getting the bios on the rest. And we also have donate now buttons for both the Arabian Horse Foundation and the Arabian Horsemen's Distress Fund, so that the delegates can participate in that part of the convention, as we all do. The other thing I want to show you is we have this really cool, I have to make sure where my camera is. We have this really cool pin. So you got the really cool pin last year for the fire. You're getting a really cool pin this year for the virtual convention. And last but not least, I want to thank everybody that had a part in getting this going. Penny, Charles, Deborah, Leslie, who never sleeps, and Karen, and I'm gonna miss people, but then I do have to say it because I am having a meeting and there are people online. We have an app and we have already started posting things to the app to tell you what's happening. So you should have received some postings today, one posting about this meeting. So check the app and make sure you watch the app for more updates. We will be having updates every day via email, via the app on what's happening the next day. So we are trying to keep you in the know as much as possible.